Call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
We have a quorum. D, personal appearances. Number 1, Ageism Awareness Day proclamation. You gotta get the microphone too. You don't get workman's comp. Microphone, what? Yeah. I think there's a case that we could, as far as I'm concerned, can they give it?
We are going to do a proclamation about Ageism Awareness Day. Whereas ageism refers to the stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination towards others based on age, and whereas it is estimated that 17.3% of American population is 65 years or over and may be impacted by ageism, and whereas ageism towards the older adults affects their health, longevity, financial well-being, and the economy of Missouri and Belton, whereas preventing ageism in education, employment, housing, culture, and healthcare will benefit all, and whereas recognizing that it's up to all of us to ensure that older adults are respected, portrayed as capable, competent, effective, and valued in all areas of society, and whereas ageism awareness and preventing ageism is beneficial to all citizens by improving the quality of life within Missouri and Belton. Now, therefore, Norman K. Larkey, Sr., Mayor of the City of Belton, does hereby declare October 9th, 2024 as Ageism Awareness Day in Belton. We urge all citizens to recognize the many contributions older adults have made to the communities in the state and honor and express their appreciation for them. It is witness whereof Mayor Larkey has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed in the city of Belton, Missouri, this 8th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2024. And this lady does such a good job at the Senior Citizen Center. I go every week and do Tai Chi, and it's just a fun group. And I really appreciate all the hard work you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 2, buckle up, phone down proclamation.
It's a proclamation regarding Buckle Up, Phone Down, October 30, 2024. Whereas the Missouri Department of Transportation and the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety are challenging the community to buckle up and put your phone down, and whereas when you get into any vehicle, buckle up your safety belt, and if you are the driver, put your cell phone down. And whereas in 2023, 991 drivers and passengers were killed in traffic crashes in Missouri. And whereas in 2023, nearly 25% of vehicle occupants killed in Missouri traffic crashes were unbuckled. And whereas crashes involving distracted driving fatalities in Missouri increased by 20 between 2022 and 2023. And whereas employees and safety partners will be making special efforts to reach out to businesses and individuals alike. By buckling up and putting your phone down, you will be doing your part to make Missouri roads safer. And whereas the simple task of buckling everyone in the vehicle and choosing not to use your phone while driving can help save your life, the lives of your passengers, and occupants of other vehicles. And whereas it's time to join the movement and stand up and be counted. Take the challenge at www.modot.org. Now, therefore, Norman K. Larkey, Sr., Mayor of the City of Belton, does hereby declare October 30, 2024 as Buckle Up, Phone Down Day in Belton. We urge all citizens to take MoDOT's Buckle Up, Phone Down Challenge and learn more about the risks associated with cell phone use and not buckling up while driving. In witness whereof, Mayor Norman K. Larkey Sr. has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed in the city of Belton, Missouri, this 8th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2024. Thank you.
That's fine, I can do it, yeah. Might as well do it now, get it over with. Really?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna put this in the car when I ride with him. All right, thank you, ladies. All right, we're gonna back up a minute. I forgot to do, kicking myself, but we're gonna take a moment of silence for citizens that died and a former city council person, Jerry Duval. So we'll take a few minutes or a few seconds silence. Thank you. Item F, new business. No, unfinished business. Motion to postpone the final reading of Bill 2024-51 to October 22, 2024 City Council meeting. Postponed from September 24, 2024.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15,250,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2024 of the City of Belton, Missouri, and certain other documents and actions by the city.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
All right, just because this is the second time it's being postponed, do we have an estimated time and as to when it won't be postponed?
Our auditors are telling me right now that the 23 audit should be done by the end of this month. The reason that we are postponing it, we don't want it to be approved and then for something to change in it, and then we have to bring another ordinance forward. So best case scenario, we just amend what we've already done the first reading on. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business, item 1, motion approving resolution 2024-85.
A resolution approving the purchase of 4 MSA safety self-contained breathing apparatus and accessories from Conrad Fire Equipment for $41,749.35.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You're up.
Good evening, Council Mayor. This is just to add to our current supply of SCBA's, not SCUBAs. And we have them and we want to make sure that they're in every vehicle. So we've grown what we've been doing. We're running more vehicles out, first out, and we've gotten more people. And so in order to have enough to have in those vehicles and extras when they break down, they're just trying to up those numbers just a little bit. And so this was planned on in this year's budget and falls within that original request amount, actually below that original request amount just a little bit. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Everybody understand what these are?
It's a good problem to have. You're fully staffed, right?
We are, yes.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving resolution 2024-86.
A resolution approving the purchase of a half-ton pickup truck to replace the current training chief vehicle in the not-to-exceed amount of $65,000.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're still up.
So you might remember we came to you and you guys approved the purchase of a new vehicle for me this year. That was something I had planned for in the capital budget. We kind of changed directions after the fact. and it substantially decreased the price and the cost of the truck that I got, as well as I ended up finding a truck much cheaper than I anticipated. So that has left enough in there for us to go ahead and move forward and hopefully replace another one that was slated for next year. And so that's just, we want to try to do that and get that out of the way. We're having some trouble trying to spread out our replacement plan, and we have some larger purchases that'll come up later, so this will ease that burden a little bit to get these out of the way. There are no bids in there, much like before, just because there aren't any state bids, so just kind of needed to get an approval of an amount range so that we could go shop and find out what was still on the lot before somebody sold it out from under us when we gotten it approved. So any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer.
Alex? Preemptive strike. Anybody? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, one motion non-available to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
You were one too early with your preemptive strike.
Oh.
Number 3, please.
Any other discussion? Hearing none on items 1 and 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2024-87.
A resolution approving an artistic agreement with Danny Romay for the creation and installation of a mural as approved by the Belton Arts Commission.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
So first I want to say that I'm excited about this. I think this is a good thing coming. I think the fact that it's our first mural is exciting, but also sad because we have so many opportunities around the city. That being said, this is aligned with what I've been saying about the homelessness committee and all of our committees in general, which is that we continue to find ourselves in a spot where those committees are requesting for funds. And I, again, think that this is going to be continuing to be a thing. I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks maybe guidelines or some type of policy or something would be good here from a city council as to when we use these, when we give funds to our subcommittees or not. But I just think it's something that I wanted to bring up. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I'm just, I don't know if we want every single one of them coming before us, and that's how we make that decision. I don't know. I'm just throwing out there that I think maybe it's something we need to ask the staff to potentially look at for us. So
I think that's a welcome request. I mean, we would glad to look into if we want to make either some sort of a grant program or, and that's a good question for us to discuss during budgeting process as well. Do we want to put funds there? Do we want to have a grant program? Do we want to allow just outright commissions that we would approve as a city? There's lots of ways we can go about this.
Oh, cool. Everybody okay with it?
I have a question, and it's only because I just don't know. So these committees in the past have not been funded, or they have been funded, or?
Well, the homelessness committee and the arts commission are brand new. We have
Yes,
not
I knew
had them
that,
here,
yeah.
and so the committees that we had mostly didn't do any purchasing of any or
okay.
do much of this sort of activity.
Okay,
And so, because of the new nature of it, there hasn't been a guideline preset for these types of committees.
okay,
if
and
that
that's
makes
what
sense.
you're.
I think that's what.
That's
yeah.
what you're talking about, because, and so it's both two new committees
So-
that are not, that haven't been exist before, now are asking for money.
I'll just give a little more history, I guess. When we went through the budget process, this came up as a point of conversation during the budget process, and I think it makes sense to bring it into the budget ahead of time. When it was brought last time, it was an amendment to the budget, and it was kind of almost haphazard, and that's what I said then, and I want to say now is that I feel like if we had a better plan in place for what that looks like, and that's really all I'm asking, maybe guidelines or policy or I don't know what the That's why I'm just asking, I guess, staff to kind of help with that, so we have that pre-baked and planned as part of our budget.
Anybody, go ahead.
I believe we had so much money allocated for each one of those from what I remember. The Arts Committee had so much, and then, but it was on an as-needed basis to come to the city manager and us to approve or not approve, but there is so much allowed for each committee.
Yeah, that's been the case, and I think that as more funding sources are identified, it would probably definitely be more sources potentially allocated if we choose to go down that path. It would definitely behoove us to make sure we have a fair and open process for those types of activities.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none, all in favor of 2024-87?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council. Councilmember Johnson.
I attended the National Night Out and thought that was a really good event. The police and fire department had a lot of things for the community to do, and I think it was very well attended. And I really appreciate the work being done on 163rd Street.
I want to second the National Night Out. Everyone that went into putting that and making that happen, as well as attendance. I mean, I got there late and attendance was still crazy. So it looks like, from my perspective anyways, seemed like a really good turnout. The Belton Car Show was a lot of fun. I had the honor of being Mayor Pro Tem during that event, which was a bit unusual, and I got to pick out the Mayor's Choice Award. And so if anyone missed it, I just would like to applaud the 1965 all-black Malibu with a manual transmission that was there, because of course that was made here in Kansas City at the Fairfax plant. So I do have quite a few parks updates. There is, on Friday, there will be senior prom from 2 to 4. That is free to attend. Then on Saturday, we have from 6 to 10 the mom prom. As a reminder, that's kind of a ladies' night at Memorial Station. It'll include dinner, drinks, raffle tickets, and all the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society in honor of Kristen Turnbow. Speaking of car shows, the last cruise night of the year will take place on October 26th. Make sure you get out for that one, as it'll be the last one. And then immediately following the cruise night over at Memorial Station, there will be the park's annual Pumpkin Palooza from 6 to 8. So that's everything I got.
The only thing I was going to bring up on the kind of piggybacking off the Belton High School Buckle Up Phone Down, I know that they've been looking at Cleveland and Mill when kids get out, about a 4-way stop there. And this is probably going to go towards Joe and Greg. But right at Cleveland and Mill, the cars it gets kind of crazy after school. Is there any possible way of putting a 4-way stop there, or?
We actually have a staff meeting about this topic scheduled for either tomorrow or Monday. So we actually are working toward a potential solution for that. The school hasn't really brought it to our attention, but you and other council members have.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, thanks.
Nothing for me.
We will be announcing a Ward 4 meeting. It's been somewhat hectic the last month, so it will be coming shortly. Also, from the Homeless Committee, several of us went to a presentation from Kansas City on their efforts to work with the unhoused, and so it was a very good presentation. I was quite surprised, actually, how good it was. And so she's agreed to come to our homeless committee, and she's the assistant city manager over at Kansas City, to present their efforts and stuff like that to our homeless committee. So I'm arranging that date. So.
I don't have much. Obviously, you can see I've been under the weather with my shoulder, but again, I just want to thank and pray for Jerry Duval and his family and their time of need and his dedicated service to the citizens of the city. I don't have his dates or anything, but I know it was a while back, so that's all I have. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and Council, there are a couple things that I want to bring your attention, and I would need some feedback at some point on. We have the potential to do an HPO mini workshop. It'd be set up kind of like a work session. We talk about HPO, the Belton Advantage, which is the city's internal culture building initiative, and the folks that essentially wrote the curriculum that we're following to kind of implement this have offered to come and give a presentation to the council, or kind of in a very abridged version to the council, but they would need a couple hours of your time on an evening to do so, if there's interest in doing that. October 29th is a potential date that's been identified. It's a Tuesday night. We have 5 Tuesdays this month, and so it would be the extra Tuesday that you guys you could currently have for yourselves that you would potentially have to give up. So let me know if that's something you all would be interested in trying to get scheduled. I'm meeting with them actually tomorrow afternoon, so just give me a heads up if you feel like you want to do it, or if you don't want to do it, either way, okay? Or if you want to try a different date.
Same time, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, we can, probably 6 o'clock. So there's that. And then the other thing is we've been discussing the budget process in this year, and I know in the past couple of years we've done these ward-specific meetings at different, at locations, mostly Memorial Station. We had a lot of success, we felt, with the recent town hall on the comprehensive plan, and we wanted to see if the council would be open to bridging all of those budget meetings into a kind of a couple of all ward budget town halls that we could host here, where we have the ability to come in person and ask questions and give feedback, ability to do it online via social media. We could record them, we could put them up on the website. And then we could give 2 different dates, so that way if someone can't make one date, they can maybe make another date. And I figured it'd be a way to, since some of those aren't necessarily heavily attended, maybe it's a way to kind of reach more people in with one meeting and be a little bit more efficient, but also add that component by doing it in here and doing that online town hall style of reaching folks who might not be able to or willing to go to a specific location, but could do it from anywhere, from their phone or from the computer. So if there's support for that, we would love to try to do that. And I think we're kind of kicking around maybe the first week in November, do a couple different dates.
I'm for it.
Okay with that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think the important piece is the 2 dates you said, because while, yes, the individual wards don't fill up all the seats, I think 4 of them together would. If not, actually, I think 2 of them together might actually. So that way, having 2 different dates and availability, I think is a good idea.
I think that and doing it online should open up the possibilities for more people to participate, and having 2 dates. Again, if you can't make one because of an issue, maybe the next one will work for you.
Will they be able to ask questions, or will you
Yes.
just present?
We would handle it very similar to what we did with the town hall for the comprehensive plan, where if people want to submit questions beforehand, they can, or if we'll have someone monitoring the social media, so if there are questions being asked on social media, they can, and then people in obviously in the audience can ask questions as well.
Okay, I think that's a really good idea.
All right.
Perfect.
Anything else?
That's it.
Item K, items for review and discussion. Item 1, purchasing policy.
The first item here, the purchasing policy, we're not asking for a major change or tweak in philosophy when it comes to the purchasing policy. The main ask, and these are redlined, so it shows you kind of the changes that we're doing. We're just trying to clean a few things up, but the main substantive ask from this potential amendment would be that bottom level of purchasing authority and approvals. Rather than having it 0 to 1,500, we're asking that you push that all the way to 5,000, and then the second level goes 1,500 to 15,000. That would go from 5,000 to 15,000 essentially. And the reason we're asking for this is because there are a lot of routine items that may cost a couple $1,000. For instance, tires for the fire truck, things that aren't major items that probably would necessarily require a full bidding process. Not that we wouldn't still shop around, but it would give us the ability at the lower levels of our organization to just make routine purchases without having to push through the the minutia of what the policy asks for at that second level. So that's I just want to get feedback, see if there's any pushback on that. We could look at when the initial purchasing policy was approved many years ago and what the prices were at that point, and then look at the inflation since then. And then I think that this price would actually be pretty much in line with what those were originally intended to be way back when. So,
Alex?
Could you just give a couple other examples, or if you don't have any off the top of your head, that's fine. But like, was it fire truck tires that brought this up, or kind of what brought this up?
No,
Yeah.
I always had an issue with this when I was even the fire chief to buy fire tires for the fire truck. I couldn't just do it. I had to get all this, because they were so expensive. So that's why I keep bringing it up. So.
So there's a lot more things tires is a big one, because when you go out and buy tires, tires have gotten very expensive, as you know, when you buy them for your car, but we're not buying, most of them, little cars for small cars. We're buying tires for bigger trucks, and they run too high. But there's routine things like our bulbs for our treatment plant. Those UV bulbs are a higher price, and so it requires a higher level of how we're going to advertise and do things. And so a lot of these things are limited number of people who actually sell them. And so when you go try to buy things, or even parts when you go to O'Reilly's and things like that, the prices are going up and up and up. So as we go buy stock items, we're buying them locally from people we know who have them. We're getting the best price we can. It just slows you down having to go through and post an ad, wait a couple of weeks for that ad to see if anybody's going to bid on it, and then you go to the same person you've always gone to. There's also people who are local who don't ever want to fill out a bid for $1,500 worth of tires. So if you want to buy them, here's my price. But if you advertise a bid, they never bid on it. And so you knock out just people who do regular business, because they don't want to ever look to our website and fill out papers to actually bid on our work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I have a question about services that wouldn't necessarily be professional services, or I don't think they would be sole source services. Sorry, that's purchases. Like blight remediation, right? Would this threshold increase apply to that?
it depends on how we handled that. The way that we're handling stuff like that now is we're trying to go out and get bids at one time and then have them on call and utilize them that way. It's a request for proposal or request for qualifications methodology, which is a little different than the policy would actually address, if that makes any sense. And so we actually pre-screen those essentially by doing the bidding process up front, and then try to have them on call for when we need them for things like blight remediation, towing services. There's instances like that.
Okay, so if they're an on-call vendor, are they subject to this purchasing authority increase?
Well, if we do go through the process, then and actually do a bidding process, then they're not necessarily in alignment with this, if that makes any sense. Because they're following a separate process. Because we're already going through the.
So can I ask? So the recent example of the generators that just came through that we just talked about, would that be a good example based on what you're describing? Because we did go through that bid process already, even though we're not currently using them. They're an on-call thing.
So they're pre-qualified for us to use. So we just go ahead and we can use them. And we have like it says here, the department director has authority to spend up to $15,000 because we've already approved them for work. If it goes up to $25,000, the city manager can approve it. But if it's $25,000 and one or more, then we bring it to you if it's an emergency afterwards. But if it's not an emergency, we bring it beforehand.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of an example, like to Allison's point here. I was just trying to think of, Councilmember Lawson. I was trying to think of an example that might fit that. That was all.
Those procedures are meant to follow this, but do it at one time up front rather than having to try to do it in the heat of the moment, especially for things we're doing routinely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Everybody good with this?
So, anybody have issues with us bringing this forth in the form of a resolution, future meeting?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Item 2, benefits renewal.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Last meeting, whenever I talked about the benefits renewal, I had reminded everyone that Aetna had come back with a 12.9% maximum increase, and that my next step was to talk to Casey about the finances, and that we would be bringing the Karn resolution to this meeting. And of course, both of us are a bit of data nerds, so we asked for more data that we knew Cigna would give us, and that's why we went to them. But what we didn't anticipate were the varied costs that we got. So before I go into some of the explanation of why I'm here again for our work session, just wanted to remind you that we have 3 plans. I did give you a copy of our benefits guide, and the benefits guide should be at each of your chairs. Page 5 to 7 are the specific plans, but we have the high deductible plan, a base PPO plan, and it's called an EPO, which is an exclusive provider organization, but we call that the buy-up. And so really the variances for the plans are the buy-up or EPO has no deductible or coinsurance. And so with that, we thought, right, that plan was going to be higher utilization. But when we got the data from Aetna, this is what it looked like. And so I'm trying to educate each of you prior to making a recommendation. This is how I learn. So what you're looking at on the screen is the number of employees or the percent of employees in each plan. So on the left here with a little mouse, 40% of our employees are in the high deductible plan. 45% are in the base PPO plan, and then 14% are in the buy-up or EPO plan. And so if you look at it from a cost spending perspective as a whole, if I were to take every one of you out to dinner and spend $100, then I'm going to pick on the mayor. So the mayor is the one person, percentage-wise, that's in the buy-up plan. Everyone on this side is on the high deductible plan. Everyone on this side is on the base plan. So what this means, the purple means that 40% of you are in the high deductible plan, but when I took you out to dinner, I spent $14.50 on all 4 of you. And that's the spend for that plan. For the base plan for you on this side, 45% of employees are in it, but when I took you out to dinner, I had to put my glasses on, 53.57%, so I spent $55 on you almost. And the mayor, the 14% was $32 of that 100. That's how much is being spent in each of those plans for a percentage. So this is a different look at that. What I do want to share, because I'm not sure if you understand medical loss ratios, it's basically for a full dollar that we spend, insurance companies like you to be at 70% because they want to make their money, plus they have administrative fees. Right now, year to date, we're at 93%. So when Aetna comes back and tells us that we only have a 10.9% increase on average, it's really good because we're almost spending all of the money that we've put in claims. This is a lot of data, but this is probably the most important one to look at. So if you look at the green columns, like their dollar bills as well, then the high deductible plan, we've paid this much and we've spent what's in the orange, so it's 35%. Again, the loss ratio, they like to be at 70. This one's at 35%. This plan, the high deductible plan, is doing very well. With the base plan, we're spending the green, the dollar, and the orange is actually what claims are coming in. So it's 111%. And with the buy-up plan or the EPO, we're putting money, the premiums are the green, and the orange is what the claims have been spent at. And so that is 173% loss ratio. So when I shared this with the employee experience team, I said, if we have a dollar and the high deductible plan is only spending this much of the dollar, they're going to like us. With a base plan, we're spending this dollar plus part of another dollar that Aetna's spending. And with the EPO or the buy-up plan, we're spending almost both dollars. So when we look at this, we looked at the 10.9% increase across the board. It really didn't make sense for the plans the way they were going. So the recommendation now is that the high deductible plan get a 0% increase, that the base plan get the 10.9, and then the EPO get a 20% increase. And that's why I wanted to bring it back, because it is significant, but based on the claims versus what we're paying in, it makes sense to charge employees in that plan a little bit more. Because I want to know how, or you probably want to know how much that is for employees. That's what this is. For the base plan, it only goes up to $33 extra per month. And for the buy-up plan, it is up to $161 a month. Do you have a question?
Can you give us a basic idea of the difference between each plan? You know, 30,000 feet, look, okay, I'm sorry,
There
you're getting there, my bad.
Yeah, so with this, and this is in the plan documents as well, and it's online, we have, for the base plan, there's a $2,000 deductible, and there, in the buy-up plan, there's no deductible. That's really the biggest change, or the biggest difference in these plans. If employees in the buy-up plan move to the base plan, they'll save $370 a month. So I think employees are really going to have to start looking at how much they spend and what the best plan is, because all of these plans are very good. Any more questions? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I put this out in front of you before I brought the car and the resolution to the next meeting with exactly these recommendations. Sure.
Could you go back to the slide where it's talking about family, individuals, single, that kind of thing? Okay.
I would like to make a quick point if you all, I know we've thrown a lot of data at you. Even with these increases, if we do that 10.9% increase at the PPO level and then the 20% increase at the E level, that's not going to recoup all of the increase that the city would have to end up still recouping some of that increase. If we follow the staff's recommendation on this, the city's going to have to eat the rest of the increase, is what I'm trying to say. There's more, the 10.9% increase across the board, which is what we're being charged by the company, amounts to about a $317,000 increase. Now that's not going to make up $317,000 by doing these increases, so we're going to have to figure out how to balance that. And that's a conversation I think we should have as we get into the budget process when it comes time for raises and those types of things. If we want to eat some of the cost, pass more of the costs on, and give raises, those are things we'll have to pick and weigh.
And I do want to remind everyone that the employees hadn't seen an increase in 3 years. So that is important to note if you weren't aware of that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
On the EPO plan, there's only 14% of people were using it. Is that correct?
There are 31 employees in the plan. And I
But it
actually
was-
know of 3 or 4 that are going to move automatically.
But it was,
There's the buy-up,
but I guess what my question is like, so it sounds like based on the numbers, it would have almost been a no-brainer for some of, or it had to have been a no-brainer for some of them because of the cost difference, right?
I think it depends on how you look at it, because there is a cost, there's an additional cost to the employee per month for that plan.
But
So they're looking at the cost when a claim comes up compared to what they're paying per month.
And it really depends on each individual, because it depends on what types of activity they had as far as medical activity.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So for some of them, it was probably a no-brainer, right? And like, hey, this is going to clearly benefit us. And some of them, they might have, I guess my point is like, you try to, it's always impossible to predict your emergency future, but you try to do that every year when you're going to this process. And so I'm just trying to think through, still doing that, it may still make sense for some of those people to keep that, I guess is my point, right?
They may think so, yes.
Okay.
And we do want to make sure that we take the time to talk about being a good consumer of healthcare, the resources that they have. We are bringing Aetna in for open enrollment, as well as the HSA, FSA individuals, so we can have those conversations and help them work through that. So we are going to try to take the next year and focus on improving those claims dollars.
Could you go back?
This way?
Yeah. So on the PPO plan, employees are free.
Correct. So with the high deductible plan, the employees get the difference between the cost of the plan as a contribution into their health savings account. And so this does remain at zero for the employee only.
But the employee who wants the better plan, they're paying 21. They're proposed 2168.
I would be careful to use the term better plan because
Yes.
if it depends on what, because, for instance, if you go back to the one that shows all three of the plans together, look at the maximums out of pocket. So if you have an incident or if you have a catastrophic event that requires a lot of medical activity, you'll see that actually having the high deductible plan costs the least amount of money out of pocket for someone, because the max is $4,000 for an individual, $8,000 for a family, and that's if you're in network. And then if you go across to the EPO, the max is $5,500 individual, $11,000 for the family, and the network's very limited.
Just to clarify, when you said that the employees haven't had an increase in 3 years, that's employee-only coverage. Employees with families may have seen an increase in the last 3 years.
Correct. I know that the employees have not seen an increase in those, and Casey, I don't know, I don't want to call you out, but since I've only been here 2 years too, I'm not sure if you remember that.
That's correct.
She looks at the numbers a lot more than I do.
Okay.
And I do want to point out too, on the EPO plan, when I say exclusive provider network, they exclude St. Luke's and St. Joe. So there are a number of people that are moving automatically, and it won't be an issue for them. So I'm guessing that it's going to be closer to 25 people. Okay, thank you for your question.
Carla, the slide that Councilmember White was looking at, that's the increase, right? That is not what the employee actually pays.
Correct, that's the increase
Yeah.
per month.
So it's not 2168 for the employee, that's the increase.
Go ahead.
What is the employee currently?
That is on page 5, 6, or 7 of the book, and that's the,
I was looking at
I was trying to plan ahead.
The bottom of those pages.
Yeah. And basically, the easy math is 10.9% increase, 20% increase, which total for the Aetna renewal is still 10.9. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Item 3, Homeless Committee Reimbursement Program.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the handout that we had before the meeting is the application. Just as a real quick timeline as to how we got here, the Homelessness Committee met for the first time at the end of last year. And then as we went through the budget process, the council had allocated $10,000 for the Homelessness Committee, not for any direct project or kind of anything that had been stipulated, but it was something that the Homelessness Committee was aware of and kind of took under kind of consideration as they put together a strategic plan for the committee itself that they're still kind of finalizing and putting the final touches on. But they wanted to get the reimbursement program, or at least find a way that they could tap into those funds that had been set aside by council. And so started working with staff, and one of the early conversations, had with finance department as well as city manager, really to try to find the easiest way that with $10,000, how do we ensure that we are being, one, transparent, two, that we are ensuring that if, council has allocated this money for homelessness or the homelessness committee, that it was being used for that purposes, and two, that we at the city had at least some control into ensure that the organization it was going to was thoroughly vetted, that we had the proper background information. We have our purchasing policy and RFP processes and financial policies in place for a reason. We wanted to ensure, because this doesn't necessarily fit within our kind of the current purchasing policy, or isn't necessarily a product or a service we're purchasing, we really kind of had to create or kind of pull together some new ideas. And so with the homelessness committee, kind of modeled this off of the city's 353 plan, or at least the process off of the 353 plan, where we essentially would be asking organizations, and on the first page really just kind of outlines very kind of quickly what is in the program, looking for the organization. The second page really gets into kind of the meat of the program itself, where we are kind of honing this in and kind of targeting, one, organizations that are eligible to apply for reimbursement have to have a valid Belton business license, so they have to be based here in Belton. They do need to submit their most recent IRS forms, their 990s, or a balance sheet or income statement, just so that we can ensure that they are operating above board and that they are a legitimate organization. Our city clerk pointed out to me item number 3, although we'd been talking about this with the homelessness committee for several months, the proof of a 501c3 status, we may need to change that to say just proof of legitimate nonprofit status, that since there are different 501 statuses under the tax code, and so, but we do still want to have something that identifies them from the IRS as a legitimate not-for-profit. And then a certificate showing the organization is good standing with the Missouri Secretary of State. Ultimately, what we are looking to do is have organizations who are based here in Belton that are directly working either with the unhoused population or working with the homelessness committee, that they have an opportunity to make this application and make an application for very specific things like supplies or a specific program that they have in mind. The committee would have the opportunity to evaluate that application to determine whether or not it was something that they wanted to support. The committee would make a recommendation to the city council ultimately, and so this application with that committee's recommendation would come to city council for approval for a maximum not to exceed amount. So for example, kind of the example I keep using is, if an organization was interested in using or applying for this reimbursement grant, say for $1,000 in supplies, let's say cots, blankets, and things, then they would make the application to the committee. The committee would review that application with staff input. The committee would make a recommendation to city council, and ultimately city council would approve or deny that application. Just like the 353 program, once council gives approval, then that organization would be allowed to make the purchase. They would need to submit receipts, invoices, or other documentation that they made those purchases, and only then, after the financial certification out of our office, would we be able to issue a reimbursement out of the funds that the council set aside. Once the $10,000 is spent, then that would be it for the program, unless council wanted to, through the budget process, change that. And so we ultimately really were trying to respect, one, that the budget was not to exceed, and two, we wanted to ensure that we had enough documentation in place that we could ensure that the organizations that were making application were a legitimate organization. One of the concerns that came up was we want to make sure that if we put out an application like this, that someone doesn't come from out of town, from out of state, from anywhere, claiming to help, say, the homeless here in the community. We have a system in place here, or at least a kind of a program in place, that we're able to run some of those checks and make sure that they do truly have, local ties, that they are either affiliated with the committee or at least have a valid business license, valid IRS forms. But we also wanted to make sure we didn't make the threshold too high, knowing that the funding capacity is limited, and so to make the application too cumbersome, we may also limit some folks who actually could tap in and use this for good within the community. And so, like I said, very, very kind of early, the committee has gone through a couple of rounds of reviews with this, and as I mentioned, Andrea had kind of pointed out something that we're going to need to change before we make it public as well. Wanted to get it in front of the council here for feedback, as well as possible resolution for approval in the future.
Go ahead.
I'm not involved with the homeless committee now, but I was when when you guys first started, and one of the goals is to have warming shelters. I know that we have them at the police department now, but we had talked about having a warming shelter in other locations, and we're in October, and this process, if they need reimbursement in order to get that up and going before cold weather gets here, that's kind of, I don't know how fast it could be worked through, but knowing that, and knowing that that was one of the goals that we talked about very early on, is that there'd be a warming shelter in place by this November, by this year. Is this going to tie our hands by this long of a process getting that through?
No, I don't imagine this would, I mean, even with like the 353 process being at most a 2-week approval process, I would envision this would be fairly quick, especially as we've continued to work, other projects. So I know that warming shelter or the warming center is something that's already been in the works with our partners through the homelessness committee. And so I don't envision this being a holdup or a barrier for that portion of the project that the homelessness committee is working on. I really see this more as kind of a supplement to what they're able to be.
So they're not going to be able to, so what I guess I'm basically asking, Mike, if they need 50 blankets and they don't have the money for 50 blankets, I mean, are we just asking them to do it on good faith and then you'll fill out the application process, or does it need to start prior to that?
They would need to start the application prior to that, yeah.
Okay.
Which is why we wanted, like I said, we wanted to get this in front of council as quickly as we could, as soon as we got some of the committee kind of behind and supporting this, as well as getting this in front of council as quickly as we could.
And I'm assuming that the people that are working towards that wouldn't be dependent on us giving them the money to get started, is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Do you have a list of the groups that would be probably mostly applying for this?
I don't off the top of my head, but I know that most of the folks, and some of the conversation had kind of coalesced around that the organizations that are currently participating in the homelessness committee would most likely be at the top of that list, being that they've been, they're organizations that are already established, they already are working in this area, and two, they've kind of already built the relationship both with those other members and organizations, but also with the city.
That's kind of where I was going. I felt like most of them are already on the committee that would probably be applying for the money, so, okay.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item L, motion to enter an executive session, discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.02.1 pertaining to leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.2 pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes,
Richardson.
Aye.
motion passes.